Hello there. Welcome back to another episode of Direct Edition, a podcast about whatever I want it to be, because I'm Dave, your host. We are the world. We are their children. Shout out to Scotty Massage Body McKean. Hi, everybody. Yes, starting off with a little weirdness. I hope everybody's well. It's been a couple of weeks since I recorded one of these little ditties. Unfortunately, the last time I recorded one of these was when Ed Piskor passed away. And not the episode that I really wanted to record, but I definitely felt like I needed to say something. And things still kind of suck. The grieving process never really makes sense, and you never know how long it's going to take. In that time, I ended up pulling off Davenger Con, a 2-day live stream event on my YouTube channel, which was a comic convention. And it was amazing. We're going to get to that. Don't worry. But first, do me a favor. Review this podcast wherever you're listening to it and subscribe if you're not, and spread the word around. I don't really do much advertising for it, so it would help if you could help. That's all. Goodbye. Just kidding. So yes, I pulled off Davenger Con 2024 with the help of Joe Scar. Joe is my graphic designer, my partner in crime. He designed the feel of it. We started working on this a couple months ago, and he came up with a couple options for a logo and a vibe, and I was like, yeah, let's go with this, kind of like chill 80s, vaporwave Miami Vice thing. And so he started designing away, and we worked on it. We had multiple meetings of like what things we needed to get done and what things we wanted to accomplish this year. And I started thinking, it's the second year that I did this, putting on an online Comic-Con. I had some ideas that I wanted to move forward with, guests that I wanted to get, guest sellers. Like, this to me is an amalgamation of all of the things that I have done with my careers, my multiple careers. I used to work in the event industry. I wanted to be an event planner at one point, but I worked for a company that did live and silent auctions at charity events. And then sometimes we'd put on our own events. And then obviously the comic selling, the interviewing, those are facets of everything that I do with West Coast Davengers. And the charity raffle, raising money for 2 charities. It was super important to me. And if you have listened to any of my podcast stuff, or you know me personally, my attachment to Tiny Changes in the memory of my friend Scott Hutchison. He was a musician and an artist. And then Bryce, Done Messed Up, who also did my West Coast Davengers theme song, who did the Sunday Sit Down theme song, who did this year's Davenger Con theme song. He has a scholarship foundation through his daughter's high school. Him and his wife give money to a student every year going into music or wanting to have a music career. And now the money we raised this year and the end of last year at Winter Davenger Con, they're going to be able to give out a couple scholarships. This is important to me. And the reason why it's important to me is because I'm not wealthy. I didn't grow up super wealthy, very middle class. But as I got older and I realized that I don't need a lot of money for myself and that raising money is a good thing. Like, I don't know how it is in most of the rest of the world. I mean, I can speak about the UK because I have experience there. But the US, one thing that we do here in the US that a lot of countries don't, and probably because of the horrible structure of our government and how people aren't being taken care of, is a lot of nonprofits and charities exist for that reason. So I feel like it's always good to give back in one way or another. They're really, I don't need to elaborate on that. Like, it just feels good to give back, and I think it's necessary. The idea for Davenger Con is to A, have a good weekend. B, provide the viewers and friends and the community for a place to hang out for a weekend and get the feeling of a Comic-Con without leaving their home. And then I had guests on, Eric Larson and Matt Wagner and Derek Kirk Kim. Now, full transparency, my original 2 guests that I was going to build the Comic-Con around with more guests was Jim Rugg and Jim Mahfood. the memorial for Ed Piskor was on the 20th in Pittsburgh, and both gyms were there. So extenuating circumstances calls, for having to pivot. And I pivoted by getting Matt Wagner and Eric Larson. And then having a couple friends on to sell, which, it's not necessary. I got to admit, I don't need to include other people as sellers on my channel. I don't. People don't come to the West Coast Davengers channel and Wednesday sales to buy from other people. They come to buy from me. But the sense of community is, okay, we're all going to give back. We're all going to take part in this. That's great. And so inviting Manu and Maddie and then also Sean, Japan Book Hunter, on was like, all right, let's bring some other people in so I don't have as much work to do. But I could have. I mean, it really isn't that much for me to work hard all day. I do this because I love it, but I also do it because it's a job. And y'all, Davey got to eat. It's something unique, and I know I can bring a unique brand of interestingness to this comic selling world because I got personality, I've got sense of humor, I enjoy having fun, I enjoy being creative. Like, people know that. People latch onto that, even if that's not something that they're aware of. That's why they're latching onto it, but they do. And so I had this grand idea of pulling this off last year, and we did pretty good. The winter Davenger Con was pretty good. But this year it was like, I said to Joe when we first started talking about this, I'm like, this is year 2. I want to treat it like it's year 5. And with that mentality, going in and being like, we've been doing this for a while. This is year 5. Like, just in my thoughts, that motivated me to do bigger and better things. One of the things that I had executed, and we executed it absolutely perfectly, was an idea that I had about, I don't know, maybe like a month or so before the con. I wanted to reach out to some of my friends in the kayfabe community and ask them, because I know a lot of like independent artists, comics makers, people that are not doing this completely professionally but are trying to. I had this idea to have a live drawing session with a couple of really great artists, and then have those illustrations that they draw live on the channel be part of the raffle. And so I asked Rob McCallum and Mike and Gabby, who are Vlad and Ivory Bunny, Adrian, who is actual Dracula, and Jeremy Heiler, because they're all King Kayfabers and we all know each other in some way, shape, or form. And for the con, it was great. 90 minutes, and everybody, they said that they were a little nervous going in, but 5-10 minutes into being live, everybody was completely natural. And I gave them the prompt of either TMNT or Star Wars, and they all picked Turtles, because I figured instead of asking them to do like comic book characters, like picking like Spider-Man and Batman or whatever, you got a whole universe to pick from. And it was great. It was amazing watching them draw. They all had different process, and everybody on the stream that was watching, including myself, we got to see these pieces come to life, and it was perfect. It was such it brought that something unique to this con that nobody thought was going to be as awesome as it was. The thing about building something like this, I want to do a couple of things with it, right? I want to make money. Fine. That's obvious. I want to sell books, right? But there's no such thing as a Comic-Con where that isn't the goal. I wanted to have some names, some marquee names, if you want to call it, to get people like, oh, this dude's got so-and-so and so-and-so coming. Okay, obviously, every single Comic-Con wants to have those marquee names. But I also wanted to highlight some people that maybe could use a little bit of spotlight put on them, and that could use their name put out there. And also, I want that shit on my channel. I want to see people drawing whatever they, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Star Wars on my channel. Like, I want that documented on my channel because I think that's cool. Plus, everybody else gets to see it when it's happening. And so that was awesome. Having Sean, Japan Book Hunter, on the sale, that was kind of a no-brainer to me, because was somebody that, if you've watched or listened to his interview, he was on my channel. I at the beginning of the year, and we hit it off. He is a kindred soul. Like, I truly believe that. We were talking the other day about hunting books and all that stuff, and I was just like, yeah, you do exactly what I do, except you're in a different place with different kind of books. That's it. But the funny thing was, he had me ship some stuff to his parents' house in the US that he got at Davenger Con, and they live in a town called Deer Park. I grew up in a town on Long Island called Deer Park. So just thought that was kind of funny. But having him on was great. And, you know, he's got a bigger following than I do on Instagram, and I don't know if he has more on YouTube, but either way, he brings people to me. I bring my people to him, and that's a symbiotic relationship. And he went out of his way to be really good about posting stuff and shouting it out. Like, he got it. This only works if everybody chips in equally. So having him on was fantastic. Now, I got to flex the creative muscles too. I went all out for the intro. So Bryce, who's a one-man band called Done Messed Up. He's done the music for the YouTube show, and he also did the music for the other Sunday sit-down program that I had for a while. We talked. He asked me if he could create the theme song for Davenger Con. I said, yeah, let's do it. And so we talked, and he's like, I could go for Beach Boys, or, you know, I had suggested Miami Vice, and I said, yeah, let's go with the Miami Vice. And so he sends me a song, and as soon as he sent it to me, I'm like, this is it. Like, I didn't ask him to change anything. I was like, this is it. Going in with about 2 weeks left or so, we had the design that Joe did, the logo, the color scheme, and then Bryce sent me the music, and that's when I started to create. And so I created the intro, and the intro credits was supposed to have footage that everybody sent me that was selling, but nobody sent me anything. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it my way, because it's my way or the highway. This time I'm going to let it all come out. All right, I won't. So I got to work. Joe had suggested me getting a green screen a while ago. So I went to the fabric store and I got a big green screen, and I started shooting all this video, and I created an intro that featured the credits of everybody that was going to be at the con, except I was in like every frame of it. And I told people the intro is like if David Lynch directed Miami Vice on mushrooms. And I got to say, and I am allowed to be proud of myself, and I'm allowed to say this, it's fucking the best thing that I ever created. It's wild. It makes no sense, but it's great. It's kind of like Tim and Eric style, you know, nothing needs to really make sense. And so I created this opening credits thing, and it was better than last year. And I was super proud of it and super happy. And I laughed at it every single time I watched it until I had the final cut. And I sent it to a couple of friends, and they saw it and they loved it too. It's actually the one way I get to be creative in this whole space. Now, I don't mean that I feel like doing this podcast or the YouTube channel is not creative, but I mean from the ground up. I put this thing together and it was awesome. Joe had given me a good idea. We were talking about, I don't remember how it started, but we were talking about interviews, and we brought up Weird Al. He used to do Al TV on MTV, where they would let him take over MTV, and he would do these quote unquote interviews, but all they were was like a stock interview that Madonna did with Kurt Loder, and Weird Al would just cut himself into the interview asking all these questions, and they would pick the weirdest shit that Madonna said as the answers or whatever. One of the greatest ones he ever did was the Eminem one, which was obviously in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so Joe had sent me this Stan Lee interview. He's like, you should just get a black background and interview Stan Lee. But I ended up letting Comic Tim interview Stan Lee. And so I recorded this interview as Comic Tim, and I cut it together with the Stan Lee interview, and it was fucking hilarious. Like, I was dying. You know, when I do the Comic Tim character, I don't completely dissociate, but I definitely go to a space in my brain that is not occupied by me. And so I crafted 3 of these interviews. One was with Stan Lee, One was with Alan Moore, and the other one was with Todd McFarlane from like a mid-90s interview. Probably those 3 interviews are probably the second favorite thing I've ever created so far for this channel. That's the whole idea of this Davenger Con, is to make it feel like something special for the viewer. You look at a lot of these YouTube comic channels, and there's really, and I'm going to take kayfabe out of the picture because kayfabe was its own island. It is to quote Ed, they were a cottage industry. But if you look at most YouTube channels, and I'm talking the comic space, there are some huge channels that have million subscribers or hundreds of thousands of subscribers. They either give you like a summary of the first 50 issues of Spawn, or they give you a summary of Todd McFarlane's career, like a Wikipedia with a bunch of facts that you could, listen to Todd in one interview and you get all those facts. Or they do like omnibus reviews or new comic book day reviews, or they do some of each of those things, and then they do top 10 books, and they do CGC this and Heritage Auctions that. Like, there's nobody I found, and maybe I'm just out looking, that goes all in, like creative, knowledgeable, does this and does that. And that's what I wanted to provide. It's just taking me a little bit longer to cultivate those huge, huge crowds of people that are watching every video, which, may not be for me. I don't know if I ever care about being one of those channels that has 50,000 subscribers. I enjoy being a cult favorite, like some of my favorite movies and some of my favorite bands. They have a tight-knit audience or fan base, and that's all you really need. You add 1 or 2 every couple of weeks, and that stick around. So that's what I wanted to provide with this, and I really am so proud of what me and Joe were able to pull off. Having everything kind of be in the time frame that we needed to be, not too many technical difficulties. We had break videos like the Comic Tim ones, and then there was interview with Bryce about his scholarship foundation, and then Tom Johnson with Tiny Changes. And now I know that, like, going forward with promoting this, like, Tiny Changes didn't do any promotion on it, which they said they were going to, and they didn't, and it would have just resulted in more dollars donated to them. I can't do anything about that. But going into it, for the next one, I may actually have to write a contract up for anybody involved that says, like, you have to promote it this way, and you have to do, like, the 3 things I ask, and that's it. Because I don't charge people money to do this. I don't see the point. But that's, that's for another time. From the audience standpoint, from the chat, from the viewership, I mean, this was twice as big as it was last year. Last year, after the weekend was done and the dust had settled, there was about 1,000 views a day. That doesn't mean there was 1,000 people in there. This year, the low was 40. The average was probably around 60 to 70. And then we topped off on Sunday night about 110 or so, 110 people in the chat. That's huge to me, because that just goes to show that I had a feeling it was going to double in viewership, and I was right. And so next year, by the time April rolls around, hopefully we'll have, I'll have 5,000 subscribers or more, and I'll have 70 to 100 people in on the average. And the guests will be there, and I don't know. I may pull back on sellers. I don't really know what I'm going to do. Like that changes for me. My desires to include other people as sellers may not be as strong as it was this year, because I could just have more guests. I could have Todd McFarlane on. I could have Rob Liefeld on. I could have any number of guests on, and I don't have to limit it. But that's just me spitballing right now. This is a huge endeavor, and I'm doing all of the work. Yes, Joe did all of the design, but I paid him. So he is working for me. He is a producer. I do not want to lose him as part of everything I do, but I also have to be looking at this as a straight shooter. I'm hiring him. It is very stressful. It's a lot of work. But the thing is, I'm doing this from my house. So at least it's in that it's comfortable. I don't know if this ever becomes a physical con, but maybe it does. Maybe it does. But that's not anything I'm going to push. I'm going to let something like that happen naturally. Next year, I'm definitely going to try and get some media coverage on it because I think it deserves it, because I don't know anybody else that's doing this. Like in the comic space, for those of you that may not be in the comic space, there are some consignment accounts on Instagram that do like a week of live sales, like Elite, but there's no personality to it. It's just like churn and burn. Let's do 2 hours with this seller and then 2 hours. The hosts are good, but there's no cohesiveness. And I don't remember who it was that I was talking to. It might have been Dave, other Dave. But I love continuity. I love the fact that everybody is on the same plate. That's why I was so happy with Sean, Japan Book Hunter, because he had the vibe that I was going for, and he matched my vibe with what he was wearing, with the background. It was very chill. People notice that stuff. They get it. Like I don't watch too much wrestling anymore, but there are certain events that wrestling promotions do that it's a vibe. And like, it's all one theme. My buddy Ethan HD, he's in a local wrestling promotion, and they do these shows where it's like a theme, like an island theme or whatever it is. I like that. To me, that's an experience. Like nothing's out of continuity. Everything feels like it's supposed to be there. Sometimes music festivals can be like that. People get into that. They want to feel like they're part of something and they're in something, like they're part of this story. And so that's a huge part for me. Like this isn't just, oh, come buy comics. Oh, come listen to people talk about comics. No, this is like kick back, relax, enjoy the show. I had friends tell me, because Joe created this great, we called it a bumper video. If I needed to take like a 10 or 15 minute break, he would just play this video. He made like a 22-minute video that revolved with the schedule and what was coming up next and buying the raffle tickets and the charity. But then he put all these different graphics in it, and it all fit together and all felt like it was supposed to be there. And the music vibed with all the other music that was being played. And, you know, it's a show. I'm doing this because I think it's fucking fun and I enjoy it. It's stressful as hell. And you know, who's to say what it would have felt like had Ed not took his own life a couple weeks before. And to be honest, I almost canceled it. I was looking for an out. I was depressed, and I'm still not out of this, but you know, I'm dealing with it. But it was just like, man, why am I doing this? This is just not what I want to be doing. And I had to be reminded by Joe and a couple other friends that like, sure, you're feeling this way now, but while this is happening, while we're doing Davenger Con, you'll be in a good mood. And that was true. But yeah, I'm really proud of what we were able to pull off and accomplish. We raised $3,600 from the raffle, which is $1,800 per charity. For Tiny Changes, that's great. For Bryce's Scholarship Foundation, that's huge. That's like 3 scholarships, if not more. So I gotta pat myself on the back for that one. You know, super important to me to be able to use my voice for something that helps other people. That's really what it boils down to with that. Yeah, Eric Larson was great. Matt Wagner, that was my first time talking to him, and that went off great. And Derek Kirk Kim. See, this is why I like Derek Kirk Kim. He's a great creator, great artist. But he watched and watches my channel. And so he kind of knew the things that I like to talk about too. And towards the end of the interview, he busted out a box of books that he got from his parents' house that he had like boxed up in high school. And we went through them live. And everybody seemed to dig it. Bonus points if you're watching my channel and stuff and you kind of get the vibe. It's just a labor of love, even though it's stressful as hell. On the back end, you know, I did really well. Sold a lot of books, made a lot of people happy. We gave out somewhere close to 30 raffle prizes, and people really reacted in a great way to how it all panned out. Because last year when I did this, I had probably 1,000 or maybe more, 1,500 less subscribers. And now people can see the hard work and how I pulled it all off. And, you know, I'm sure that people will try and pull this off the same. But as I said to Joe, they can try, but the thing is, they're not me. So, you know, you're only listening to this podcast because it's me. You're not listening to it because you saw the title, how to build your own Comic-Con or whatever I want to call it. And you're like, you know what? I want to learn that, because to build something like this, you gotta just put everything into it. You can't half-ass it, and you can't go in just having people selling books. That's not interesting. Anybody can do that. I could do it tomorrow. I could turn my YouTube channel into a hosting claim sales for everybody. I fucking don't want to do that. That's not why I got into this for. Sorry, I had a lot to get off my chest, I guess, about this, but mostly good. There's no bad. There's just doing things differently. That's all. I don't know if I'm going to do a winter version of this like I did last year, which is just one day, but I'm already kind of getting ideas for next year's Davenger Con. And I know Joe and I will start talking about the design probably within the next couple of weeks, because the earlier that we get started on this, the bigger it's going to be next year. And so I'm really, really proud of that. Taking some time off from selling, probably like 2 weeks, but I think I'm going to record some more podcast episodes, try to get a couple interviews in. And I'm really just reinvigorated in this. And big shout out to the artists who drew on there, because they didn't know what to expect, and they didn't know how they were going to feel, especially because a couple of them don't even draw with physical supplies anymore. They're digital artists. And so some of them had to draw for the first time in years and years, and they did great. They were killer pieces. I even drew something, and it looks like serial killer art. But, that's my art style, which is no style whatsoever. Recently I've just gotten a lot of new followers and stuff, and new subscribers to this podcast, and I appreciate it. And I'm sorry that it had to be that Ed's death was the reason why you heard my podcast for the first time. But I kind of completely forgot that this posts on YouTube, and because it does Ed Piskor's name, triggered a lot of people to listen to this. And I'm thankful for those of you that said kind things. Some of you that didn't, your comments were deleted. And if you ever say anything to me again, that'll be deleted too. Because the one thing I love about living in 2024 is that if I don't want you anywhere near me digitally, I can make that happen. It's a good thing about online. And I think it's okay, if not great, that you can curate the things that you see online. You can't curate the things that happen to you outside of the internet. You can choose your friends, but if a stranger comes up to you and tells you to go fuck yourself, there's nothing you can do about that except say, thank you, go fuck yourself back. But on the internet, if you say something, comment something that's ignorant, disgusting, or just vile, I can just delete it and block you. That's a beautiful thing, actually. And in the wake of Ed's suicide, I was blocking content creators that showed up in my algorithm that were exploiting Ed's death. And it's very easy to spot those, because there are people that word it like he was murdered by the internet, or this, like or cancel pigs, blah, blah, blah. The only people that were posting stuff that were actually cared about Ed, you could tell, like Rob Guillory, I think that's how you say his last name, posted a podcast about just the culture surrounding it, and it was very respectful. And there are some people that were kayfabe fans that have YouTube channels similar to me that were posting memorials, but I was just basically blocking or muting every channel that was using it for clicks. And I inadvertently, didn't realize that I was going to get a huge response to the podcast, because as it stands, the podcast had maybe 100 total subscribers across all platforms. And now it's closer to 200, 250. So I just want to say thank you to the listeners that are new from that. And I promise you that every piece of me that said everything in that episode is exactly who I am. I'm honest. I don't really pull punches. I'm a pretty emotional person. Sometimes it gets the best of me, the best of you. Dave Grohl, hi. I'm just appreciative of the people who are still listening to this and subscribing and all that. But so yeah, Davenger Con was a huge success, and I'm just really proud of what I pulled off, along with the help of Joe and the friends that were there. And next year it's going to be bigger and better, and it'll probably just keep growing from there. So if you didn't watch, you can go back on YouTube and check out the 2 days. I've timestamped all like the interviews and the Comic Tim's video segments and all that stuff, and the drawing segments. So check that out if it's something, you know, you're interested in, and see what vibe we put down. And who knows what the theme's going to be like next year, but I'm sure it'll be something fun. I wanted to just kind of talk about that, and I'll probably record another episode soon because I've got plenty on my mind. But thank you if you were in attendance at Davenger Con, if you bought a raffle ticket. It means the world to me. I was saying, and I truly do honestly believe that, like, you don't have to buy a book, but please, you know, charity raffle is super important. Plus you can win something, and who doesn't like winning, right? Thank you for that. I think that's going to be it for this episode of Direct Edition. But once again, before you leave, come on, listen, 40 subscribers on Spotify. I've only got 8 reviews. 39 subscribers on Apple. I've only got 7 reviews. Are you seeing a pattern here? So take some time, throw a review up. If you're listening to this for the first time, hit that subscribe button, because I want this podcast to grow, but God damn it, it's so hard to promote a podcast as well as a YouTube channel. It really is. I am only one person, so help me out here. That's all. I'll keep bringing the goods. You just do that one little thing. This is Dave, signing off on another episode of Direct Edition. Don't forget, we are the world. We are the children. Scotty Massage, Ventress, Purple Teeth Teacher.